You bought what with my credit? I said, staring at my phone like it had betrayed me. It was a quiet Sunday morning. I was making pancakes, still in my robe, the sunlight filtering through my tiny apartment's kitchen window. Then that notification popped up. Auto loan approved for $32,000 under your name. I felt my stomach drop. I called her, Ashley, my sister, thinking this had to be some mistake. But she didn't even try to lie. I was going to tell you, she said flatly, like she'd borrowed a shirt, not ruined my credit. I needed the car to get to interviews. You're not using your score anyway. For a second, I couldn't breathe. She used my name, my years of hard work, like it was hers. And worst of all, she didn't even sound sorry. Something inside me snapped right then. My name is Emily Carter, and I'm 29 years old. I live in a quiet part of Denver, Colorado, in a one-bedroom apartment I've worked hard to afford. By day, I'm a freelance digital marketing consultant. By night, I'm either curled up with a cup of tea and a mystery novel, or I'm drafting ideas for a business I've been building on the side, something of my own. Every cent I've ever made, I've saved, invested, and used wisely. I was never one to gamble, not with money and definitely not with trust. That's why what Ashley did, cuts so deep. Ashley is 27, 2 years younger. Always the golden child. Always the one with the charming smile, the flair for drama, and the ability to make everyone fall in love with her. At least at first. Growing up, she was the princess of the house while I was the planner, the quiet one, the mature one. I didn't resent her for that. Not at first. But that was before the patterns repeated, before the world kept giving her grace, while I was expected to be the backbone. Responsible. Silent. Supportive. I remember one night, a few years ago, when Ashley called me crying. She'd broken up with her boyfriend, dropped out of community college, and totaled the used car Dad had bought her. I drove 4 hours in the snow to pick her up. She stayed with me for 3 weeks, eating my food, sleeping in my bed while I took the couch, and using my laptop to scroll through job sites she never applied to. When she finally left, she thanked me with a half-hearted hug and an empty fridge. My friends told me I was too forgiving, but I didn't see it that way. I saw a younger sister who needed help, someone I was supposed to protect. "I'm not your burden," she told me once mid-fight. "But you act like I'm your project." I didn't know what to say then. Maybe because she wasn't completely wrong. We grew up in a modest home in the suburbs of Colorado Springs. Our mom worked long hours as a nurse, and our dad was a mechanic who never really learned how to express affection unless it was through fixing things. He was strict, especially with me. I had a curfew. I had chores. I had rules. Ashley? Not so much. When I turned 16, I got a part-time job at a diner and used my wages to help cover my phone bill. When Ashley turned 16, she got a party and a promise that she'd never have to work until college. Mom would say, "She's different, Em. You're the strong one." And I was. I had to be. But strong doesn't mean unbreakable. And trusting doesn't mean foolish. The thing about credit is, it's invisible until it matters. I spent years building mine. I paid my student loans on time. I used my first credit card like a scalpel, small purchases, always paid in full. I monitored my score like a hawk. Because I had plans. Big ones. I wanted to buy a small office space and turn my freelance side hustle into a full-service digital branding agency. I'd even spoken to a loan advisor last fall, and they told me I was in great shape, credit in the high 700s, stable income, 0 delinquencies. Until now. Until Ashley. I replayed every red flag I had ignored. The time she asked me if she could borrow my social for a job application. "They just need to verify ID," she said. The time I saw her flipping through my documents and she brushed it off with a laugh. "Relax, Em. I'm not stealing your life." And the time she casually asked if I had ever thought of leasing a car. Back then, I thought she was just curious. I thought maybe, for once, she was trying to learn from me. Now I know she was planning something all along. There's a photograph on my fridge. It's faded from sun and time. It's me and Ashley, ages 7 and 5. We're wearing Halloween costumes, me as a librarian, go figure, and her as a fairy princess. In the picture, she's tugging on my hand, dragging me toward the camera, and I'm laughing. I kept it there because it reminded me of a time before everything got complicated. Before life separated us into roles, the responsible sister and the reckless one. But after the loan notification, I couldn't even look at it. I couldn't sleep that night. I stayed up, staring at the ceiling, the numbers spinning in my head. $32,000. That was no small mistake. That was a life-altering hit to my financial future, my dreams, my autonomy. And she didn't even ask. Did she think I wouldn't notice? Or did she just not care? Both answers hurt. The next morning, I visited my bank. The loan had already been processed. Her name was on the title, but my name was on the financing. I was legally responsible. The woman at the desk gave me a tight-lipped smile when I asked if there was anything I could do. "I'm afraid the only path would be to prove identity theft, ma'am," she said. "That would mean pressing charges." My stomach turned. Pressing charges on my sister? Could I even do that? Would I? I called my grandmother that afternoon. She's the only one in my family who's never treated me like I was invisible. She answered on the first ring. "Emily, sweetheart, what's wrong?" And I told her everything. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, there was a long pause on her end. Then she said softly, "People will use you until there's nothing left, baby. Especially the ones you love." I felt tears sting the corners of my eyes. "But don't get bitter," she added. "Get better. Be smart. You don't have to scream to fight back. Sometimes you just have to close the door." That night, I started planning. I couldn't undo the loan overnight, but I could stop Ashley from getting away with it again. And I remembered something I hadn't thought about in months, a conversation with my friend Alicia, who worked in HR for a fast-growing startup in town. A few months back, Alicia had mentioned that her team was interviewing candidates for a new social media manager role, a position with decent pay, flexible hours, and good upward mobility. And guess who had just told me last week that she was applying for a cool new job in marketing? Ashley. Suddenly, the pieces clicked. She'd used my credit to buy a car because she was trying to appear financially stable and capable. She needed it to commute. She wanted the job. But she forgot one thing. I knew the hiring manager. And just like that, the scale began to tip. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to threaten. I was going to act. Silently. Strategically. The way people like Ashley never expected me to. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't always come with a scream or a slammed door. Sometimes, it comes with a soft chuckle, a familiar face, and a knife so slow and subtle you don't realize it's twisting until it's too late. But this time, I wasn't going to bleed quietly. 2 days after the loan incident, I got a text from Alicia. "Hey girl, remember that social media role? We just got a final resume from an Ashley Carter. Says she's your sister?" I stared at my screen, heart racing. This was it. I knew the CEO of the startup too, Jordan Winters, from a digital branding seminar I'd hosted last year. We'd exchanged numbers, shared coffee once, and kept in casual touch. He respected me. He liked how I worked. I had credibility in his eyes. And now Ashley had waltzed into his company, wearing my name, my recommendations, and probably my past experiences spun into her own fake narrative. For once, I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I called Alicia that night. No nerves. No shaking. "Don't say anything to her yet," I said. "What's going on?" "She stole my credit to buy a car. Without permission. Without remorse." There was a beat of silence. "You're kidding." "I wish." I heard Alicia inhale sharply on the other end. "Emily, that's serious. Do you want us to cancel her interview?" "No," I said calmly. "Let her walk into the room. Let her think she's getting the job. I just want you to watch what happens next." The day of Ashley's final interview, I showed up at Jordan's office. Not as her sister, but as a consultant. I had offered to do a quick review of their brand strategy, something Jordan had been asking for months. He greeted me warmly. "I'm really glad you came in today. That candidate you mentioned, Ashley Carter, she's got a decent resume. Bit green, but confident." "She's confident," I said with a tight smile. but I thought it might help if you knew the full story. He raised an eyebrow. Is there something we should know? Instead of answering, I pulled out a small folder from my tote bag. Inside it were 3 documents. 1. A copy of the auto loan approval under my name. 2. A notarized statement confirming she had used my personal information without consent. 3. Screenshots of our text conversation, especially where she admitted she used my credit because I wasn't using it anyway. I laid them on the table slowly. Jordan's expression shifted as he read. She did this to you? He asked, eyes wide. I nodded. She also applied to your company using padded credentials and a list of skills she's watched me perform for years. She's not a strategist. She's a sponge. Jordan closed the folder. Well, he said quietly, thank you for letting us know. Ashley walked into that interview 20 minutes later, wearing her favorite blazer, her new designer heels, probably financed through the car loan, and the air of someone who believed she'd already won. I didn't need to be in the room to see it. Alicia told me everything afterward. She acted like a VIP, Alicia said. All charm, all performance. But when Jordan asked her about campaign metrics and brand funnel strategies, she blinked. Apparently, she stammered through some vague buzzwords, tried to shift topics, and even mentioned that she had family in the field, trying to sound connected. Jordan didn't challenge her. He didn't confront her. He just thanked her for coming, shook her hand, and let her walk out. And then he quietly removed her from consideration. I didn't hear from Ashley for 3 more days. Then came the inevitable storm. She showed up at my apartment, no warning, no text. I opened the door, and she shoved past me like she owned the place. You're unbelievable, she hissed, tossing her bag on the floor. You sabotaged my interview. I stayed silent. She whirled around. Jordan told Alicia that you'd warned him. You humiliated me. No, I said coolly. I protected a company from hiring a fraud. And I protected myself from letting you keep pretending that my life is your backup plan. She blinked. I could see the anger rising, coiling in her throat like a flame she couldn't control. You always do this, she snapped. You make everything about you. You love holding power over me. I stood still. Calm. You stole my identity, Ashley. I needed the car. And you thought that made it okay? She looked away, biting her lip. You always think you're better than me, she whispered. Because you're responsible. Because you're independent. But guess what, Emily? Nobody cares. People like you die alone. The words hit like ice. But they didn't crack me. Instead, I walked to my kitchen drawer, opened it, and took out an envelope. I handed it to her. What's this? Your loan payment schedule, I said. With your name. I called the dealership and added you to the loan. I've filed a formal fraud claim, but I gave them the chance to let you co-own it instead. She paled. You'll make every payment. If you miss even one, I'll escalate it to law enforcement. You wouldn't. I would, I said. I already have the paperwork ready. Her face twisted, half shame, half disbelief. And for the first time in years, she didn't have anything to say. She just grabbed her bag, turned around, and walked out of my apartment. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I just stood at the door, staring at the space she had just vacated, feeling something I hadn't in a long time. Control. Not over her. Over myself. You'd think after something like that, after being caught, exposed, and offered a lifeline, Ashley would have taken the hint. But entitlement doesn't vanish with a warning. It festers when it's been fed for too long. And Ashley had been eating off my plate for years. The next week was strangely quiet. I thought maybe she had taken the payment plan seriously. She hadn't missed the first installment. She hadn't texted, hadn't called. I allowed myself to believe it was over. I was wrong. It started subtly. A mutual friend, Clara, texted me. Hey, word question, did you really throw Ashley under the bus at her job interview? She said you were jealous. I stared at the message. Jealous. Of her? I didn't respond right away. I took a breath, reminded myself who I was now. Someone who didn't justify truths to people looking for drama. Instead, I replied, I protected myself. And the truth is on paper, not in gossip. Clara didn't reply after that. But more messages came. From other friends. Distant cousins. She said you're bitter because she got the car and you can't drive. She said you used to bully her in high school, so this was payback. She told people you forged documents to make her look bad. Each one was like a slow leak in a once-healed wound. Ashley wasn't just doubling down, she was rewriting history. I confronted her again, this time at Mom's birthday dinner. I had considered skipping it, but my mom was kind, a woman of peace, always caught between her daughters like a referee with no whistle. When I arrived at the restaurant, I saw Ashley already there, full smile, surrounded by relatives, her laugh a little too loud. She looked up, noticed me, and her expression flickered. Just for a second. Then she rose from her chair and hugged me tightly. "Emily," she chirped. "You look great." Fake. But I hugged her back anyway. Because I wasn't here to play her game. I was here to keep my head. Dinner went smoothly at first. Small talk. Cake. Family photos. Until my Aunt Joan leaned in and said, "Ashley told us about the job thing. Shame you couldn't support her." And there it was. I put my fork down gently. "She didn't tell you the part about stealing my identity?" Joan blinked. "She said you offered to co-sign." I turned to Ashley, keeping my voice calm. "You're still telling that lie?" She gave a weak laugh. "I told them what I remembered." "No," I said. "You told them what made you look better." Everyone went quiet. Mom's hand trembled slightly on her wine glass. "Girls, please. Not here." But I kept going. Not to be cruel, but to be clear. "Ashley, if you wanted to rebuild your life, I'd have helped. You didn't need to steal my name, my credit, and then apply for a job using my qualifications. You just had to ask." Ashley scoffed. "You wouldn't have helped me. You never do. You judge me for not being like you." My jaw clenched. "You mean responsible?" That hit hard. Her eyes burned. "You've always thought you're better than me." "I don't think I'm better," I said. "I just stopped letting you drag me down." Ashley pushed her chair back. "You want to embarrass me here? Fine. I'll go." And she stormed out, making a scene, of course. Tossed napkin, gasps from the table, tears that never quite fell. I didn't follow. This time, I let her leave on her own. Later that night, I got a call from Lisa, Ashley's old best friend. Lisa and I hadn't spoken in a while, but we'd always been cordial. She was sweet, artistic, and used to be glued to Ashley's side. "Hey," she said hesitantly, "I saw the Facebook post Ashley put up and I think you should see it." I didn't have the energy to check. But Lisa sent a screenshot anyway. Ashley had posted a long, dramatic paragraph claiming her sister betrayed her publicly and sabotaged her dreams, ending with, "You never expect family to be your downfall." The comments were filled with sympathy, heart emojis, and people bashing a nameless villain me. I felt my chest tighten, then loosen. Because this time, I didn't feel broken. I felt aware. "Lisa," I asked quietly, "why did you stop being friends with her?" She paused. "Honestly, she used me. Always needed help. Always made me feel like the bad guy when I couldn't fix her mistakes. I finally walked away after she used my credit to book an Airbnb and ghosted me when it overdrafted." So I wasn't the only one. Ashley had done this before, multiple times, to multiple people. "She makes everyone feel like her savior, then her enemy," Lisa said. I nodded. "Thanks for telling me." She hesitated again, then added, "I'm applying to marketing programs. Would you mind reviewing my portfolio? I trust your eye." I smiled, a real one. "Of course." Over the next few weeks, something unexpected happened. People started reaching out, not to blame me, but to thank me. Lisa, a girl from high school Ashley once bullied. An ex-boyfriend who said Ashley scammed him into co-signing for a phone line. Each one told me a story. Each one shared a truth I hadn't known. And slowly, a web began to emerge. Ashley had built a legacy not of bad luck, but of repeated exploitation. I wasn't her first target. I was just the one who finally said no. One morning, I checked my bank app. Ashley had missed her second loan payment. I waited 24 hours. Gave her a grace period. Then I filed a full fraud report with the credit bureau. I included the texts, the document copies, the dealership letter. Everything. And this time, I wasn't afraid of what she'd think of me. Because what she thought wasn't my responsibility anymore. 2 weeks later, she showed up again. This time, she wasn't angry. She was crying. Real tears. "I'm going to lose the car," she whispered. "They said they might repo it. I don't know what to do." I stood in the doorway. "I gave you a choice, Ashley." She looked up, eyes red. "I didn't think you'd actually go through with it." "That's the problem," I said. "You never believe consequences apply to you." She looked like she wanted to argue, then didn't. Instead, she whispered, "Can you help me just this once?" I exhaled, then walked inside, grabbed an envelope, handed her a final letter, the one notifying her of the fraud case submission and her legal options. "You'll need a lawyer," I said. "I suggest using your car as collateral to hire one." She stared at the paper. "You're really doing this?" "I already did." She didn't cry again. She didn't beg. She just nodded, walked away, and got into her car. And for the first time in her life, she didn't look back. And I didn't either. Ashley didn't speak to me for weeks after that final visit. And honestly, it was peaceful. No backhanded comments. No guilt-ridden texts. No drama dragging itself into my space. For the first time in years, I could hear myself think. I could feel the stillness in my home. I could breathe. But peace wasn't just about silence. It was about learning who I was again, without the chaos. It took work, small, quiet, sometimes painful work. I started with something simple, cleaning my apartment. It wasn't dirty, but it carried memories. Things she touched. Things she borrowed. Reminders of how much space I had allowed her to take in my life. I boxed up items she'd left. A hairbrush. A scarf. A few books she never finished. I didn't donate them. I didn't burn them. I threw them away. Because she hadn't valued those things, and I wasn't going to give them new meaning they didn't deserve. One afternoon, while going through my desk drawer, I found the birthday card from Grandma again. The one with the underlined line. "You don't owe anyone your ruin, sweetheart." That line had echoed in my mind the night I refused to help Ashley. But now it felt different. It felt like an anchor. I taped it to the inside of my closet door. So I'd see it every morning. So I'd remember. I also followed through with something I'd always pushed aside. Starting my own business. Marketing had always been my thing, but I'd spent so many years building other people's ideas. Never my own. But now I had a vision. I registered my own consulting brand, Bright Thread Strategies, and built a clean website, built around brands that were ethical, community-focused, and small business-driven. And guess what? Lisa became my first client. She'd gotten into a creative program at a nearby college and was launching a handmade stationery line. She sent me samples, delicate, minimalist, with her own watercolors. One of them had a quote on it. "Some storms clear paths." I smiled when I read it. Yes, they do. Later, Lisa and I met for coffee. It was the first time we sat across from each other, without Ashley between us. There was no awkwardness, just shared peace. "I feel lighter," she said, sipping her latte. "Like I'm allowed to be me now." I nodded. She made us feel like caretakers, not friends. Lisa reached into her bag and handed me a small wrapped box. Inside was a custom pen, engraved with my name and the words, "Built by Boundaries." "I figured if you're going to start signing contracts," she said with a grin, "might as well use something powerful." It was the best gift I'd gotten in years. Not everyone disappeared with Ashley. My mom, especially, struggled with the shift. She called one evening and asked, "Emily, are you sure this is the only way?" I paused. Not because I doubted, but because I understood her grief. "I'm sure," I said softly. "But I'm not angry anymore. I just won't allow her to use me." There was silence. Then Mom said, "I'm sorry for not seeing it sooner. I think I wanted so badly for you girls to love each other." I ignored the damage. I felt something release in my chest. "Thanks, Mom." She added, I started going to counseling. I want to understand codependency better. That was the first time she'd ever said the word. Progress, I thought. Real, soft, needed progress. A few weeks later, I hosted a small gathering at my apartment. Just 5 people. Close ones. Lisa, my coworker Abby, Clara, who had apologized after learning the truth, and 2 clients. I made food. Real food, stuff I hadn't cooked in forever because I was always too drained. We lit candles. Laughed. And I realized something. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was living. At the end of the night, Clara stayed behind to help clean. She looked at me, half laughing. You know, I always thought you were the quiet sister. I raised an eyebrow. I am.
No, she said.
You were just silent because of her.
But now?
You're centered. And it's loud in the best way. I didn't know how to respond, but my smile said enough. Then one day, something unexpected happened. I got an envelope in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. Inside was a folded note. I didn't know how much I needed to lose to finally see myself. I'm still angry, but I'm angrier at the version of me that made you the villain. I won't ask for anything more. Just thanks for stopping me before I became worse. It wasn't signed, but I knew who it was.
Ashley.
I didn't cry. I didn't laugh. I just held the paper, read it once more, then slid it into a drawer. Not as a keepsake, but as closure. A month later, I saw Lisa post a picture of her new display in a local bookstore. Her stationery line was growing. People were tagging it, buying it, celebrating it. And every time she credited her branding, she tagged Bright Thread Strategies. That tag meant something. It meant I was building now, not for revenge, not for reputation, but for me. Some weeks later, I met with a young client, a high school student named Naomi, who wanted help designing a fundraiser for her robotics club. She reminded me of myself at 16. Smart, eager, a little unsure, not used to being taken seriously. After we went through her design plan, she hesitated and said, "Can I ask, what made you start your business?" I thought for a moment, then smiled and said, "I got tired of fixing other people's messes. So I built something clean." She nodded slowly, like she understood more than she let on. We talked another hour, and as I walked her to the door, she said, "Thanks for being the kind of adult I hope I grow into." That meant more than any revenge ever could. 6 months later, my life looked nothing like it did before. Gone was the constant buzzing of my phone with Ashley's endless demands. Gone were the quiet nights filled with second-guessing and self-blame. And in their place,
light,
focus,
peace.
I had moved to a new apartment. It wasn't bigger, but it had a balcony. Every morning, I'd take my coffee out there, barefoot, wrapped in a shawl my grandma had knit years ago, and watch the sunrise crawl over the skyline of Raleigh, North Carolina. My balcony had a row of lavender plants in white pots. My workspace inside had a mood board pinned with future goals. A small bookshelf sat beside my desk with titles like Boundary Boss, The Art of Saying No, and Quiet Power. Each one had dog-eared pages, scribbled notes, highlights in blue and pink. These weren't just books. They were the tools I used to rebuild my identity. Bright Thread Strategies was doing better than I ever imagined. Lisa's brand had gone viral on TikTok after one of her healing message cards got featured by an influencer. That snowballed into several inquiries for branding help, and Lisa, bless her, sang my praises in every interview. Within months, I had a waitlist. Clients ranging from therapists to community organizers. One even flew in from out of state just to meet and discuss her nonprofit rebranding. I wasn't just working, I was thriving. But the most beautiful part wasn't business. It was healing. I began going to therapy myself. At first, just to learn better boundaries. But it went deeper. I started unraveling patterns of how I was trained to please, to fix, to overcompensate for others' messes. I confronted some harsh truths about how much I tied my worth to being useful, and I began detaching, slowly, surely, from that identity. I even took a trip, a solo getaway to Asheville, 3 days in the mountains. No schedule. No clients. Just me, hiking trails, a cozy cabin, and the smell of pine everywhere. I sat by a fire pit one night, stars glistening above, and remembered the version of me that once believed she'd never breathe without chaos near her. I closed my eyes, and in the silence I whispered, "Thank you for surviving." It was the first time I truly thanked myself, not just for getting through, but for choosing better. Ashley never came back. Not physically, not emotionally. After the unsigned note, there was silence. And I was okay with that. Because closure isn't always a dramatic phone call or a final confrontation. Sometimes, it's just letting it end without needing more. Letting people leave. And not running after them. One afternoon, while walking through a local street fair, I saw someone that made my heart pause. Ashley's old friend Clara. She looked different. Lighter. More self-assured. She saw me and waved, then jogged over. We exchanged small talk. It was surprisingly warm. She reached out to me too. Clara said quietly, eyes scanning the crowd. Apologized. Said she's trying to figure things out.
Still working at that dealership.
Still stubborn. I nodded. I hope she finds what she's looking for, I said. Clara studied me for a moment. You don't hate her, do you? I shook my head.
No.
But I love me more now. Clara smiled. Good. The best moment came one sunny afternoon. I hosted a small business launch party, a little open house for Bright Thread's new office space. Just a co-working studio, but it had my name on the door. There were snacks, candles, mini vision board kits for guests to build. And taped above the welcome table, a blown-up version of Grandma's handwriting. You don't owe anyone your ruin, sweetheart. People stopped to read it. Took photos. Some even teared up. That line was more than a quote. It was the root of my rebirth. I stood by the window later that day, watching the light pour in, when Lisa came over with a fresh bouquet. Remember when we used to think surviving her was the best we could hope for? She asked. I nodded, touched the petals of the lavender and peonies she brought. Turns out, thriving is even sweeter. As the evening wound down, I stepped out onto the building's shared rooftop. The sun was setting, golden light painting the tops of the trees below. I pulled out the pen Lisa had once gifted me, built by boundaries. I twirled it in my hand, thought of every no I had spoken, every yes I had reclaimed for myself. And I felt it, peace. Not the fragile kind you're scared to lose, but the kind you protect, the kind you grow. They say betrayal breaks you, but that's only half the truth. Sometimes, it reveals you. It strips away the noise, the roles, the stories you were told about who you're supposed to be. And what's left is the person you were always meant to become. I'm Emily Carter.
Daughter. Sister.
Survivor. Businesswoman. Boundary setter. Believer in second chances, when earned. And this isn't revenge anymore. It's restoration.